Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks, Akshay. That is kind of you. I got hassled because of being delayed. Sorry. Thanks for reminding me. Um, so, Parmenides of Elia, so we don't have to worry about the modern iteration of that. Uh, we'll be talking about him in a certain amount of detail. And another person that I want to talk about in not so much detail uh, is Zeno, who's also of Elia. Okay, Zeno of Elia. Uh, Parmenides is mentioned. Some people tell me I have a tendency to not pronounce the R. So some people have told me the Greek pronunciation is not Parmenides, it is Parmenides. You have to pronounce the R, and you have to not only pronounce the R, you have to emphasize the R, which is Parmenides. So Parmenides of Elia and Zeno of Elia are both talked about by two different philosophers. Plato talks about Parmenides, and uh, Aristotle talks about Zeno. Okay. In fact, if you go by Plato's accounts, it looks as if Parmenides did meet Socrates, who was a young man then, and Parmenides was already a sexagenarian, or somebody who was in his 60s. That's what Plato tells us. In fact, for some strange reason, he seems to suggest that he would have been 65 years old. I don't know how he arrived at that particular number of 65, but some of the other this could be a bad translation, somebody just getting into it without uh, doing proper work. So we'll just call him somebody who was in his 60s. And Socrates was apparently a very young man then. Now, we don't know how young he was, but he was a young man. And Zeno is talked about by Aristotle. And Aristotle says most of the uh, philosophical content of Zeno is something that should be understood as a support to the philosophy of Parmenides. Okay, so the question is, why are we talking about these people? So let's go one by one, and let's start with Xenophanes of Colophon. Okay, if you remember yesterday, uh, Anaximenes was the last of the Milesians we talked about. And what uh, is said by of Anaximenes is that he had a theory of condensation and rarefaction. I think I gave you the theory of condensation, but I didn't give you the theory of rarefaction. Okay, the theory of condensation, I told you, is that everything is air, and when it condenses, it becomes water. The primary substance is air, and it becomes water when some condensation takes place, and when further condensation takes place, then it becomes the earth. Right? That's what we talked about. But I didn't tell you, because I think we were running out of time. I didn't tell you what happens when air rarefies. Air, when it rarefies, according to uh, Xenophanes, it becomes fire. And this is an important thing for us to understand, because it is not just uh, Greek mythology that holds fire in great esteem. You will find that ancient Indian cosmologies also hold fire in reverence. Okay, so there are different kinds of Agni that are uh, basically defined by the Vedas, including the fire that one who is called a um, who is actually the eldest son of a family. He brings a fire with him at the time of birth itself, and that fire is what he uses to light the pyre, funeral pyre of his parents. Okay, so that's one thing. And then they talk about Jataragni, which is something that is there, fire that burns in your stomach. But that is not acidity. Some people have unfortunately translated that into acidity. It isn't that at all. Far from it. Uh, the significance of that is completely different. I don't want to go and get distracted by that right now. But fire, let's understand, has also been held as a very, very important element by uh, the Indian cosmology as well, as did the Egyptians. Anyway, so it is not just the mythology that existed in the Greek civilization that talks about fire as being important, and Prometheus as being the person who brought fire from heaven onto the earth. You will see that another philosopher who actually is a contemporary of Parmenides, he talks about fire as being a primary substance. Why? Why do I do this? Primary substance, and he is Heraclitus. Heraclitus believed that the primary substance from which everything emanated is fire. Okay. Uh, and Heraclitus is very much in the mold of the Milesians. He's not a part of the Milesian school. He came many years after the Milesian school, uh, sorry, came into being. Uh, but he's definitely a part of the Milesian school in the sense that he believed in the primacy of matter, or he believed that matter is extremely important, which is what you find when you are looking at the whole idea of the primary substance It is matter. And if you're saying that as an axiom as opposites move into each other, and then therefore you have the formation of the earth, all that is matter. So if you look at the Marxist school of thinking, and especially the Engelsians among uh, the Marxists, they have great reverence for the Milesian school because they believe that they prioritize matter over everything else. And if you know your Marxism, which I hope you do, uh, uh, because you studied it at your BA level, you would have heard of dialectical materialism. Has anyone heard of dialectical materialism?
Yes, sir.
What did Marx say about dialectical materialism? Akshay,
I was not sure, sir.
you're not sure. Anybody else who heard that phrase dialectical materialism?
I hope he talked about historical materialism.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Historical materialism.
Hmm. Not dialectical materialism, huh?
Yes, sir.
Hmm. Did I tell you this before, or you got it yourself?
You told.
I spoke about it. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
right. Dialectical materialism doesn't exist in Marx. Okay. Um, if you can show a proper translation in which there is dialectical materialism in the writings of Marx, I will eat all the books that you can give me on Marxism. Marx didn't talk about dialectical materialism, he talked about historical materialism. Dialectical materialism was talked about by Engels, okay? Uh, and Akshay seems to be the only one who remembered it. Anyway, so I'll come back to that when we talk about the dialectics, which we will do today. And what we find is that the Milesian school is rooted in matter, and therefore it is something that the Marxists and the Engels, even though Marx didn't talk about, uh, you know, dialectical materialism, he definitely talked about the objective material conditions that had to be studied in order to understand human history properly. Okay, that's what he said, objective material conditions. So he did talk about matter, though not as dialectical materialism. And it is historical materialism in the context of which he said this objective material conditions. Okay, which means he's saying remove the human being out of it. Right. And there is a problem with that, but we'll deal with that when we come to it. Uh, so, fire for Heraclitus is not only holy, but it is also the primary substance. And Heraclitus also believed in the primacy of matter, just like the Milesians did. Let me quote him for you now, and I'll get back to this quotation again. He very famously said, "You don't step into the same river twice." Okay, you don't step into the same river twice, which essentially means that the river is flowing. The water into which you stepped and you came out, and that water has flowed. And if you step back into the river, this is different water because the river is flowing. So he said, you don't step into the same river twice. But I'll come back to this again. But for now, let's leave Heraclitus alone and go to Xenophanes, okay, of Colophon. Xenophanes is important because, as I was saying, if you talk about condensation, if you talk about rarefaction, then you have to have something that condenses, something that rarefies. So a proper name for that was given by Xenophanes. People today say that, I don't know the Greek word for that. The Greek word is a bit too complicated for my happiness. Uh, People do say that he used a word that can translate into atoms. Okay. And Xenophanes believed in the coming together of atoms for the formation of things. Okay. So the coming together of atoms for the formation of things. Okay. Uh, and therefore, Xenophanes, who is who is a kind of um, what should we say? Who is a kind of a contemporary of Parmenides, again, probably an elder uh, uh, contemporary. He had some influence on Parmenides. By that, it doesn't mean when we say somebody was influenced by, it doesn't mean that they agreed with that person. Okay. It can also be that you are disagreeing with that person. Now, Parmenides is one of those fascinating characters, really fascinating. He belongs to the Eleatic school. Like the Milesian school, you have the Eleatic school, in which you have both Parmenides and Zeno. And sometimes, even though Xenophanes is from Colophon, people would add him to the Eleatic school because of the fact that most of Parmenides' philosophy is a reaction to some of the things that Xenophanes says. Okay, now what we basically need to understand here is, yeah, what we basically need to understand here is Parmenides refutes Xenophanes in many ways. Okay, and Parmenides, some people will tell you, is also one of the first ontologists. He's considered to be one of the first ontologists, but you must remember here that the ontology of Parmenides is not the ontology that we know. The ontology of Parmenides it is metaphysics. Can somebody tell me what is metaphysics? Quickly. Anybody? Quickly, please. Have you heard of metaphysics? Hmm?
Heard, but we don't know, sir.
You heard, but you don't know. Anybody who heard and knows? Okay. Uh, Simple definition, meta is beyond. Okay. So when you say metaphysics, what you're saying is beyond physics. Okay. So what is Parmenides' ontology then? He says our, Jesus, don't tell me the past one. No. Our existence is beyond physics or the physical world. The physical world is also material world. Okay, that is what is one of the primary arguments of Parmenides is. All right. So he is, though in when we say he's influenced by Xenophon, he's not somebody who's subscribing to the philosophy of Xenophon. Okay, in fact, he's constructing an alternative to Xenophon and also to his to his contemporary uh, Heraclitus. This particular statement, existence is beyond physics or the physical world, okay, um, is something which goes absolutely against Heraclitus. Let us try and understand what exactly uh, is being said by Parmenides. Okay, let's leave that there. All right. So if we are looking at, if we're basically looking at what Parmenides is basically saying, if you want to put it in one line, you can put it in one line, and that line would be thought and being are the same. Okay, as far as Parmenides is concerned, thought and being are the same. Okay, they are not two different things. They are absolutely the same thing. Whoever it is whose mic is on, please could you mute it? Kruparani is lying down, but her mic is muted. Hmm. So, anyway, thought and being are the same. That is the reason why he's an ontologist. But the reason why he's metaphysical is because thought is not physics, right? Thought is not matter. Again, I take recourse to Mr. Bill Gates. Uh, is somebody asking me something here? Okay. Rachna is just saying to everyone, okay. All right. So there it goes. Thought and being are the same. Now, thought is not something that you can explain in physical terms, right? And therefore, you find the idea that the ontology of uh, Parmenides is metaphysics. Okay. Okay. And um, therefore, as far as Parmenides is concerned, everything in the world is still, right? Everything in the world is still. Because what is the world? The world is your being. And what is your being? Your being is your thought. Okay? That's the equation. The world is being, and being is thought. And so he takes issue with um, Heraclitus, and he says, there is no river. Okay, that's the thing that Parmenides says. There is no river that you're talking about which is flowing. That flowing river is your illusion. He uses the term illusion. Okay, for him, all movement is illusory. All right, all movement for him is illusory, and he came up with this particular uh, statement that out of nothing comes nothing. Okay, all movement is illusory, and out of nothing comes nothing. Okay, and he also says nothing comes out from being. Where has that gone? I have to type it elsewhere. Nothing comes out of being because being is static. Okay, being is static. That's why he says all movement is illusory. Okay, now actually, it's a very funny thing that there isn't much writing of Parmenides that is available to us, his direct writing. He is supposed to have written a text which is mostly called the poem. Nobody, very few people bother to give it a name. Uh, some people say that this poem was actually called On Nature, and that there are only fragments of that remaining. There are only fragments of that remaining, and therefore he basically says, uh, I mean, that the world is being and being is thought, and since the world is being and being is thought, nothing comes out of being, as being is static. Thought is for him not matter that can move. So therefore, all movement is illusory. Okay, so let me make this a little more understandable. It's getting too abstract, but we can't help it, I'm afraid. This is very badly put. Nothing comes out of being because being is static, it should be. But anyway, okay. Um, all right. Now, Parmenides talks about two ways of looking at the world. Okay, two views rather on reality, if you want. Don't let's not call it the world. We'll call it two views on reality. One view, hmm, the first view is what he calls way of truth. Okay, and the second one that he talks about is what he calls way of appearances. Okay, the one way of looking at is way of truth, and the other one is way of appearances. Can somebody tell me what is the difference between truth and truth? Can somebody tell me what's the difference? Hmm.
Truth is reality. And sir, did you use a capital letter for first one and not for the second?
First, I'm sorry, truth with a small t is reality.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying? No, no, I'm
I
not
think
saying that. I'm asking you, did I hear you say that?
I said truth is reality. I don't know which T now.
Oh, you don't know which is reality and now you, that's a very intelligent thing. Okay, and you've lobbed the ball back at me. Well, anyone else who would like to take a Padmanavanan is a lot more. I've underestimated her. Huh? She has now put me in a corner. So let me see. Akshay, do you know what the difference is?
No, sir.
No. I can see Madam Rachna's name. Yeah. So, Madam, can you please tell me what is the difference? Rachna, Madam Rachna.
Madam Rachna. Pinni Rachna. I
Huh?
I don't know, sir.
You don't know.
Uh,
Actually,
the
even I don't know.
okay. Uh,
I'm just pretending that I know. I was hoping
I
Padmanavanan will give me the answer and then I can say, oh, wow, you're right. Hmm,
I surprised to see the difference. I mean, how a meaning will change with the capital and small letters, sir.
It will. I'll tell you how.
Okay.
It'll change even with, why do you think I'm writing thought and being with a capital? Because
So there can be a difference between reality and factuality.
between
Factuality, facts and reality. Are they both the same? Facts and truths?
facts and truth. Um, okay, all right. Now that you have made it even more complicated. Well,
I actually didn't want to.
no, it's okay. I like things to be made complicated. It's good fun when things are made complicated. Then we explore more. Truth, when written with a small t, is what we would say, don't use the word reality or real here. You say it is correctness or fact. Okay, so if Padmanavanand says, sir, you're morbidly obese, then that is the truth with a capital small t. Okay, but in philosophy, in our everyday language, we don't make this description, this distinction. But in philosophy, when you write truth with a capital T, then we are talking about it as being real. And if you look at this idea of the real, it is juxtaposed with another word, with the actual. Okay, so if you ask Parmenides, you're saying all movement is um, all movement is illusory. So what is an illusion? Somebody tell me. Let's go there. I was hoping to go to this later, but Madam Padma Navanand Garu has pulled me into it right now. She said, you're not going to wait. Get into this now. So I have to get into it. So what is illusion?
Something
Trance.
which we imagine,
Mm.
Something which we imagine,
like a
Illusion.
hallucination.
like a hallucination. Oh my God, oh God, oh God, oh God. Right, so here we go. Illusion, delusion, and hallucination.
Sir, trance.
Are they all the same? Huh? Sorry, Akshay.
Trance.
Pardon?
Trans.
I'm not able to hear you. You'll have to be louder.
Trans, sir. TRANCE.
PRAN
CE.
trans.
Trans. TT.
Trans. Okay, TR. T. No, 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 no. Trance is going into some kind of um, disconnect from reality. Going into a trance is going into a disconnect from your material world, not reality. Okay, that is no. So, in fact, psychology also has started using these. These were once the exclusive prerogative of philosophy, but now medicine and psychology have started using these terms. So let's put illusion aside. What is a delusion? Anybody who's heard of a delusion?
Yeah, some mental problem people will have delusion disease, I think so.
Mental problem?
Some psychologists used to use this delusion word like
So
delusion,
how do they use it?
like false
False?
beliefs.
False belief.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say that is wrong, but I can't say that it is right either. It's certainly not wrong, but certainly not right either. Yes, Madam, you were trying to, you unmuted yourself. You want to say something?
Yes, I was saying the same thing. Believing false things, or even though we have some facts before us,
Hmm.
we don't want to believe in that, and we want to get into a state of delusion, going contrary towards reality.
Again, a bit vague. If you want to understand it since she brought up psychology, if you want to understand it in the psychology or the psychiatry uh, way of understanding a delusion is an impression of yours which is not a fact. Okay,
Yes, sir.
I will not use the word real because there is a problem there. Okay, so a delusion is not a fact. For example, you say, I suffer from delusions of greatness. I mean, okay, I hope I don't. Um, I sincerely hope I don't think I'm great. Otherwise, then I need to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Uh, Madam Rachna, if you ever find me being delusional, can you please suggest a psychologist or a psychiatrist that I can go and get therapy from? Huh? Rachna, madam?
Yes, sir.
You can give me the name of a psychologist or a psychiatrist if I suffer from delusions of greatness. Hmm?
I don't know, sir.
You don't know.
In in
Okay.
Nizamabad, Dr. Keshavlu is there
In
for
Nizamabad,
psychologist, I
Dr.
think so.
Keshavlu is there. Okay, I'll
Yes.
go to Nizamabad. No problem.
No, sir. Whatever you said is absolutely correct. No, there is nothing false in it. You are great.
I'm not great.
Whoa.
You are great.
No, 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 no. Let's not take it there. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I'll go to Dr. Keshavlu.
No need, sir.
You have to give me. By the way, I lived in Nizamabad in my formative years. You're from
Uh,
Nizamabad?
yes, sir. I am from
Okay.
Nizam.
I lived in Nizamabad in my formative years. I have vivid memories of Nizamabad. I was in Kanteshwar, uh,
Okay.
near the railway bridge.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but I was really small then, very, very small, 3 years old, 4 years old. But I have vivid memories of how that place was
Great.
then. And I've been meaning to go back to Nizamabad, just like my father wanted to go back to Hanmakonda. Because
Okay.
anyway, that's why am I talking about all that? So delusion, if you have this sense that you're great, then yeah, and if you are not really great, then that's a delusion. Okay, which is deluded thinking as far as psychiatry and psychology go. But a delusion is a wrong impression. That is the most neutral way of putting it. Hallucination is seeing things that don't exist. Okay, seeing things that don't exist is hallucination. Or if you take drugs like LSD, which Timothy O'Leary once very famously called them consciousness expanding substance, LSD. Okay, he called it a consciousness expanding substance. So if you are taking LSD, then it basically means that you are, uh, what should I say? You are looking at a situation um, where you see things which others don't see. Okay, so they are also called hallucinogens. Hallucinogens are those that contribute to the creation of hallucinations. Okay, so consciousness expanding is complete hogwash. I don't know if you are aware of the history of the CIA. Timothy O'Leary, the person that I quoted now, who was the head of the CIA, when Europe was in the grip of, uh, after the Second World War, okay, when Europe was showing more and more signs of going away from capitalism, they were going away from America. At that particular time, especially in rock music concerts, Timothy O'Leary introduced LSD. It stands for lysergic dimethazone. I forget what the S is for. Okay. Uh, I'm getting very old, so obviously my memory isn't as good as it used to be. Uh, so, not that it was ever good. So, LSD is a hallucinogenic substance. So, his idea of administering LSD, you'll be surprised to know, till the mid 60s, the world over, LSD, marijuana, which is the a rough equivalent of our ganja, okay, and then there are several others, heroin, uh, then there is cocaine, all these substance abusery things, we call them substance abusers now, they were legal, and they were legal at the instance of the CIA, because the CIA did not want the youth asking for a change. Okay, asking for a change in the nature of society. And if you look at the 1960s, you have what is called the flower generation, and they talked about flower power. Okay, so they were uh, anti-war, anti-USA movements, especially in Europe, but also in the USA itself. Okay, because the USA had gone to the gone to war with Korea, which it never won. Okay, the USA had gone to war with Vietnam, which it never won, and more recently, it has gone to war with Afghanistan and the Taliban, which it has never won. Now, Joe Biden says we are going to withdraw from by August, we are going unconditional withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan, probably Iraq as well. They said there are weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And where are they? They went and plundered the place. Which weapon did they find? They didn't find any weapon of mass destruction there. So uh, they have never won a war, by the way. The only war they won on their own is against Grenada, which is the size of Hyderabad, or probably a little smaller. And they won that war there. But otherwise, they never won a war on their own. Wherever they have gone, Korea, uh, Vietnam, Nicaragua, Afghanistan, uh, Iraq, and they were preparing to go into Iran also. Okay, they've never won a war. And what was shameful for them is that, uh, they basically were defeated in Vietnam by one main weapon. You know what that weapon is? Does anyone know what weapon the Vietnamese used against uh, the Americans? No? They used a snare, animal snare. Okay? If an animal steps into a snare, usually it is used on the boundaries of an agricultural field so that animals don't go in and spoil the crop. So you have these snares which have teeth, and if you step onto it, then it clamps onto your leg and doesn't allow you to move. And that's how most of the American soldiers were captured. They went with all their machine guns and all sophisticated weaponry and fell prey to snares. So that's how it is. So America has never won a war on its own, with that exception of Grenada. I'm sure you don't even know that there's a country called Grenada that exists. Okay, uh, so hallucinogens are those which are different. An illusion is something which is in the nature. This is not to be used. This is not used in psychiatry or in psychology. It is used purely in philosophy. It is the actual. The Indian equivalent of this is Incidentally, that's my wife's name. Every time I write that, I feel very self-conscious. I don't know why. I've been married to her for 28 years. But does anyone know what Maya is? Apart from my wife.
Magic.
Ah, Maya is not magic at all. It is an illusion.
In Telugu meaning
In Telugu?
is it a Telugu? In Telugu, I feel it is a false, I think.
False. In Telugu, it is false. No. Okay. We'll hold that. All right. I won't get into this now, because if I get into this now, then we'll go out of control. So what I will do is, I will, how do I deal with this? I'll come back to this idea of the truth. Okay, if you say truth is correctness, fact, or veracity, right? You can use that. But when you're writing it with this, then truth is you can call it truth is the principle that drives the universe, or you can also say it is the principle. This is probably better than that principle behind the existence of the universe. Yeah, this is a better one. Not drives. The universe is not driven. That is the truth. So anybody who's familiar with is anyone familiar with well, I wanted to rub this and I know. Yeah. Is anyone familiar with Buddha's idea of the truth?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
Eightfold path. Desires are the, I feel.
Eightfold noble, eightfold path. Yes, there is an eight, but that's not the truth.
The desires are the responsible for the,
For
that's I think.
for
అంటే దుఃఖానికి మూలం కోరికలు and something. He said that is the truth, he said.
Okay. Dukkha is the truth. Okay, as far as the Buddha is concerned, he said dukkha is the truth, and it comes from our desire to acquire things. Okay, we think that by acquiring more and more things, our life will be comfortable, but it won't be. It causes dukkha, which technically in English is
Suffer,
sadness,
suffering. I think.
not suffering,
Uh,
sadness that leads to suffering. Okay, sadness that leads to suffering. That is dukkha. Dukkha itself is not suffering. It is a sadness that leads to suffering. Jesus. Yes. 1487263. What is your doubt, please? You raised your hand.
సార్ ఒక 2 minutes అప్పుడప్పుడు తెలుగులో చెప్పండి సార్ కొంచెం.
నేను తెలుగులో చెప్తే మీకు ఇంగ్లీష్ రాదు.
ఓకే ఓకే
మీరు రెమెడియల్ క్లాసెస్కి రండి. మీరు రెమెడియల్ క్లాసెస్కి వస్తే అక్కడ వస్తుంది. అక్కడ
ఓకే
చెప్తాను.
ఓకే సార్.
రెమెడియల్ క్లాసెస్కి రండి, అక్కడ వస్తుంది.
ఓకే సార్.
రైట్. Okay. So dukkha it is. It doesn't have a proper translation in English and other European languages, and it is a certain kind of sadness that leads to suffering. Okay, so that will be the philosophical truth, a truth that is written with a capital T, because that is the primary principle, the main principle. Okay, I'm not going to go into the actual right now, because when we talk about Plato, and we talk of Plato's philosophy, we will be talking of what illusion and maya and actual are. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, you said suffering. I mean, dukkha is dukkam is responsible for desire, no, sir?
No. The desire is responsible for dukkham.
Okay. It's a truth, but somebody will not accept that, no? Then how it is a truth, sir? Universally, it should be truth. Truth means truth, but some people may not accept it. How can we say it?
If some people don't accept it, it is their problem. As far as Buddha is concerned, that is the truth. Okay? As far as Buddha is concerned, that is the truth. He believed that the pursuit of materialistic things is something that does not lead to happiness. Okay, let me just give you one very offhand example. Okay, which is when I basically I have a stereo system, I have a huge collection of cassette tapes, and I have a huge collection of audio CDs. Now the thing is, they have gone out of fashion, the cassette tapes, and I can't play them. I've got some great music on them. Now CDs are also going to go out of fashion. They have already gone out of fashion. Do you see any music shops anymore? You don't see any music shops anymore. Okay, everything is coming onto your cell phone. But for an audiophile like me, I don't like to listen to music on a cell phone, even if I put my speakers on. I like to listen to it on a proper stereo system with a surround sound and all that kind of stuff. So that desire is leading to unhappiness because I can't realize it.
Okay.
You get what I'm trying to say? I have over 300 tapes and I don't have anything to play them on. Hmm. I have over 300 tapes and nothing to play them on because nobody makes tape players anymore. Right? Now you get sound boxes where you put things on your USB drive or whatever, and they're badly compressed as MP3 files and all that. And you have to go according to the list that has been put on that. You can't say, let me listen to this song again, go back to it. So, too much of technology sometimes doesn't make life simpler. It makes it more difficult. It makes it more difficult. So, if people don't want to accept it, too bad. But he believed that dukkha is a result of our wanting things. And if we can't find what we want, or if we can't get what we want to work the way we want it to work, then that leads to dukkha. So that for him is the principle that is behind all the problems in the world. Okay? So it really doesn't matter if somebody accepts his, then you say, I'm not a Buddhist. I don't accept Buddha, right? Everybody is not a Christian. There are some truths that Jesus also gave. There are some truths that are there supposedly in Sanatana Dharma, or there is a truth actually in Sanatana Dharma. I don't want to go into all that now. Even the Jains have the principles of the truth. Okay, so if you have that, then if somebody doesn't accept it, it doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It just means that somebody doesn't accept it. Okay? So that'll become a little more clear when we go to this thing. It's 10:40, so I'd better shut up for today and start off again tomorrow. I'm sorry I started late. I really had a problem with connectivity, and that is something I couldn't do much about. Okay, so my apologies for starting late, and we'll get on with it. And I think it was Sunil మీరేనా అడిగారు తెలుగులో చెప్పండి అని.
అవునవును సార్.
దట్ అది రెమెడియల్ క్లాసెస్లో.
ఓకే సార్.
ఓకే.
ఓకే సార్.
రైట్. థ్యాంక్ యూ.
థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్.
Right. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice
Thank
day.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank
Same to
you,
you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for reminding me to record, Akshay. That was very kind of you. Yeah.
Welcome, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.